S.H.I.E.L.D. 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 Everyone, David here, back again to review the mid-season premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that has finally returned after concluding Agent Carter last week, which is a tremendous show. It was a very pleasant surprise, that show, and I highly recommend it. As soon as it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD, or if you have the ability to maybe stream it from somewhere, I don't know exactly, but if you can find it somewhere, please check out Agent Carter. I was meaning to do a full season review, but I got kind of lazy and work caught up with me and I couldn't do it. But here I am to tell you that if you have not seen Agent Carter, then please do so. As soon as it comes out on home release, check it out. Blind buy it, I dare say, because it's actually that good. It's almost as good as the second season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been so far. Not up to par because it is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's got Coulson, it's got everybody, but Agent Carter is a spiritual sequel to Captain America: The First Avenger. So if you liked that movie, or if you thought it was okay, then you'll definitely like Agent Carter, because it has enough in it to keep you going with it, and I definitely recommend that show. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the mid-season premiere for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was entitled Aftershocks, and man, what an appropriate title, because there were some aftershocks. What would have been an even more appropriate title would have been Aftermath, because I feel like that's the overall theme of this episode, because it deals with almost every single character within this story dealing with the aftermath after the events that happened at the end of the mid-season finale last winter. And when I say every character, I don't just mean the protagonist, but even the antagonist as well. And out of all the characters, the one that I felt for the most, which is completely ironic considering that in season 1, I probably wouldn't have cared about this character all that much, was Skye, who is just going through an awful lot in this episode because she feels personally responsible for the entire thing, both technically and emotionally, because on the one hand she feels like maybe if she wasn't down there, Trip wouldn't have died, certain things wouldn't have happened, and she wouldn't have paved the way for Hydra to get their hands on this superhuman entity, this thing that was down there. And also, at the end of the episode, we find out that it was actually her who was responsible for the quake that destroyed that entire set of catacombs down there, which I kind of speculated, me as the viewer, and I'm pretty sure an awful lot of people have speculated as well, considering that she will be one of the Inhumans who is, I believe, named Quake, and that's one of her special abilities, to be able to cause seismic activity. But it is Fitz who kind of deducts this from her biological data, and this is also another example of something else that I really liked about this episode, is that it's keeping the momentum going by not slowing things down. We get through an awful lot of things through this episode real fast. But before I tackle that, I really want to sympathize with Skye, because man, she's just in tears by the end of the episode, and I felt for her more than I could have felt for not only any character, but even for her back in season 1. Remember her in season 1, where she was all angsty and kind of, I don't want to say incompetent, but she just felt just a little bit in the way of things, and I'm like, oh man, I really hope they do something with this girl. And man, she has faced a complete turnaround, and she has turned out to be one of the best characters in the series thus far. The rest of the team not doing so well either. I mean, there was some humongous tension, especially during this scene where it looks like the team was going to be divided, and there was going to be some very huge drama within the group, because everybody feels, to a certain extent, and with a little bit of a different detail, everybody felt responsible for what happened. You got some people in here who felt responsible for Trip's death. You got Mac, who's dealing with overcoming that sensation of being taken over by this alien stuff that was in his head. And man, you really feel for him, because you're like, man, I couldn't even imagine being trapped inside your own body without being able to do anything. And then you got some other people who are also trying to overcome some of the big things of almost having Hydra take over and being able to gain access to this alien superpowers. And much like Coulson says at the beginning of the episode, everybody's dealing with this thing a certain way. Even Simmons, who I don't really see in this picture, but Simmons is also dealing with her own personal struggle about not wanting to be that person that she was at the beginning of season 1, just like Skye, where she was very curious about almost anything that was abnormal. She's like, ooh, what's this, what's that? And she wanted to tamper with it. Now she just doesn't want to do with she doesn't want anything to do with that stuff. She just wants to say, hey, if we can kill it, please let's do so. She even implies putting down Reyna. if it means putting an end to what could possibly be an outbreak of this strange and very terrible condition. Now, call me a cold-hearted bastard, but much like with some other shows like Gotham or even more so The Walking Dead, there's been, this trend happening recently with certain characters dying that I personally did not feel all that much for, but I felt more for the surrounding effects that characters' death had on those surrounding people. And I think a similar thing happens here with Trip, who died in the mid-season finale. And everybody coping with his death was, to me, much more sympathetic than it was with with Trip actually leaving the show by getting killed. Because, again, I never found Trip to have that much of a sparkling personality, so I feel a slight disconnect when it comes to some of these characters reminiscent about Trip, especially in that last scene where they're all sharing stories about Trip and Skye saying, oh, we're gonna laugh a lot less. I wasn't... It's almost like me as a viewer wasn't there for these stories, for those moments that can definitely have these characters say, man, I'm sure gonna miss Trip, because I'm not. Sure, I did get a little choked up at the scene of Coulson consoling Trip's mother when giving her the bad news, and it was a touching scene. But besides that, again, I felt more for the characters that Trip's death had an effect on, rather than Trip's death itself. And remember how I said that things are moving quickly? They are moving quickly. Within just one episode, we make already another move on Hydra by cutting off the rest of the heads. And we also, like I stated before, that whole thing with Fitz finding out about Skye, but then keeping it a secret because he feels like the rest aren't ready to hear this out just yet. And man, that's going to be a huge bomb to be dropped. But going back to this whole thing with Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. making the move by being out in the open, leading to what was probably the most lighthearted moment of the entire episode, because trust me, there were some humongous emotions running throughout the entire episode from both sides, from both the protagonist and antagonist sides, and I'll talk about the antagonist in a second. But besides all that going on, it led to one of the more lighthearted moments in the episode where Coulson and his team orchestrate this fake ambush to get Bakshi, who I remembered his name. They orchestrate this fake ambush to get Bakshi to lead Hunter back to the rest of the Hydra leaders to be able to take them out, because they know that somehow, some way, they're gonna Bakshi's gonna want to be in charge, so they're gonna off the rest of the Hydra team members. And not only did this lead to a lighthearted moment with Coulson going, "You'll never take us alive." I mean, at first, for a split second, I thought that May getting shot was somewhat real. I was like, oh wait, no. And then as soon as Coulson said, "You'll never take us alive," I'm like, bruh. And sure enough, later on, it's revealed that the whole thing was a fake ambush, and that was cool. That was really neat, and Coulson just cracks me up. But this led to what was my only little skeptical moment in the entire episode, and that was the show practically pushing Hydra to the side by killing off all of the remaining Hydra leaders besides Whitehall. We took care of Whitehall in the mid-season finale, so now the rest of the leaders are literally killed off in this episode. Only one is actually taken out by S.H.I.E.L.D. themselves at point-blank range in the head, but the rest are killed off by that other S.H.I.E.L.D., that Hydra leader who was with Bakshi at the moment, because they wanted to take control of the entire organization. And I'm like, wow, you guys are really upping the body count here. And I'm kind of glad that it's Hydra, but it also serves as a way for the show to say, okay, we're going to push Hydra to the side, and we're just going to focus on the human storyline, because it's clearly where they're trying to put all of their attention on. And that's cool and all, but just don't forget about Hydra completely, because this is still Hydra we're talking about. It's a huge element that is, for the time being, not only very important for the MCU, but very important for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And since the show's not wasting any time, even Reyna returns in her new form, and for a split second I thought that she was just going to be in the shadows and they're going to continue teasing us, but lo and behold, she reveals herself by the end of this episode in her complete form. Well, no, not completely, but you get what I'm saying. Like, she shows off her new form, and not only is it very fascinating to see, but it did something that I wish Gotham would have done recently with a particular thing it did with a certain character on that show, that I was like, really, you guys couldn't pull that through? But S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't, and that was adding a layer to Reina that I hadn't seen before. That made me somewhat feel for her character. And she's an antagonist, so that's really saying something. This character was always confident and very smug about her surroundings, feeling like she was going to achieve greatness, but now that she got what she was seeking and it didn't turn out the way that she had planned it, she gets kind of destroyed inside, and you see this character who, like I said, had all the confidence in the world inside of her, be destroyed to the point where she wanted to legitimately commit suicide. And you're like, wow, this is a humongous turnaround for the character. And even though she's a villain, I felt for her, especially when she's describing the pain, the physical and emotional pain that she's going through in the mere hours that she's been this way. You're like, oh man, you know, the way, I know it's only been a short amount of time, but the way you describe it, I kind of feel for you, and that's really strange. And she was going to go through with it, you know, she didn't have anything in her mind go click, and then she's like, oh no, maybe I could use it to my advantage. She starts walking into the road, legitimately trying to kill herself, and then even when those special forces, that special forces unit comes in, which I still wonder who sent them and how did they find her, she says, you're either going to have to kill me or I'm going to make you do it. But before anything happens, that guy without the eyes, whose name I believe is Gordon, teleports in, literally swoops her off her feet and takes her away. And it looks like these two are going to have much more in common than besides their unusual newfound powers, or at least the newfound powers that Reina now has, because this guy clearly has had them ever since 1985, based on that opening scene with him and Skye's mother, which, like I said, also added a layer to that character, because it looks like he went through the same thing that Reina's going through, where it was very painful, it was difficult for him to adapt, but it looked like he managed to hone in his powers. And he knows something that Reina is probably seeking to find in order to continue living this life as an Inhuman. An Inhuman that is probably going to transform into this particular character. I can't remember the comic book character's name because I saw it in an article somewhere, but this is definitely a character that people are speculating Reina is going to become. And also, it's kind of interesting to see that that guy, Gordon, had some kind of tie with Skye's mother. And it looks like Skye's mother wasn't just an ordinary civilian. It looked like she was part of an even grander plan. Hopefully, we get a couple of more flashbacks to give us some more information in the later episodes. Now, just a couple of side notes before I wrap up. One, it was interesting to note, and it was something that I actually didn't notice until I had finished the episode, and that was that there was no Ward to be found in this episode, which I'm kind of glad, because I felt like if they had shoehorned Ward somehow into this episode, it would have been a little bit too crowded. I already felt that just a little tiny bit with Cal, Skye's father, played by Kyle MacLachlan, being in there with him trying to hide and plan his next move, because I thought that was going to be the entire scene, only for Reina to come in and give that scene much more value, because not only did I like Kyle MacLachlan's continuing portrayal of Cal being this geeky type of father while at the same time being creepy and kind of mad inside, and I like how he's combining those two elements to form this brand new character, and I'm really digging that. But besides that, Cal has some sort of function in that scene by Reina coming to him saying, hey, what the hell is this? Being that he was the one who kind of concocted this whole plan to find this city of the Inhumans down below in the catacombs. But it was just such a good moment for Cal to tell Reina, hey, you don't want to live like this, then don't live. And he just walks away, and I'm like, God, that was the final peel of that layer that I was hoping to get out of Reina. And Cal provided that particular peeling of that layer. So I'm kind of glad that Ward wasn't put in there, because I felt like I already felt that a little bit going on with Cal. But on another note, we also got something else going on with Mockingbird here and Mac. It is semi or pseudo revealed that she had a support group going, and that was her big secret that she was hiding from Hunter. And when that scene came up, I'm like, guys, really, a support group? I mean, I know you can do better. And sure enough, they do better, because at the end of the episode, it turns out that little mini Lola that Mac was putting together for Coulson has a little mini scanner that was scanning the entire room looking for that particular cube that Fury gave to Coulson to start up S.H.I.E.L.D. once more. What do Mac and Mockingbird want with it? Do they work for Hydra? Do they work for somebody else? I was like, oh my god, thank you for not going for that stupid support group thing, because I wouldn't have bought it. And fortunately, the S.H.I.E.L.D. writers know what they're doing once more. My only other nitpicks about the episode is that every now and then there was a line of dialogue or a delivery of a line of dialogue or just a little tiny nuance that I wish could have been handled a little bit different. And I really do mean tiny. Like, a good example would be that scene where Skye compares herself to a leper being in quarantine, and then Mockingbird is like a leper, and then she recaps the whole thing that she has gone through, and at the end she says, you're a rock star. You're not a leper, you're a rock star. And I feel like any other show that didn't have to do anything with Marvel would have gone for some kind of Jesus analogy, because the first thing that comes into my mind when I think of leper, I think of Jesus, who cured the lepers in the story. So I felt like that was just the show playing it safe to not try to offend anybody or tap any sort of sensitive ground. And there were a couple of moments where I felt like, especially during the first half of the episode, where I felt like they were recapping a little bit too much. Like certain lines of dialogue were put in there forcefully to say, this is what happened previously in S.H.I.E.L.D. and now you're caught up. But besides that, again, it's just it pales in comparison to the things that I really did like about this episode. Not only was it an entertaining episode, but also a very grounded and a very emotional one that's keeping the momentum of S.H.I.E.L.D., the momentum that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been building through season 2, and I'm super glad. It's almost like we didn't even have a mid-season break. It just continuously kept on going. So for that, I give Aftershocks a high 8 out of 10. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you think we have some big things coming for the series, considering the introduction of Inhumans. And man, how crazy is this? How crazy it is that they're setting up a future movie through a show. I just feel bad for whoever's not watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And if you haven't, and if you're still somehow watching this video, please do so now. I'll see you guys next time.